Okay, welcome to my messy shop. Just wanted to show off my 416 Barrett press I made. You could also run 50 calibers, 50 cal BMGs in this press. I built it all out of scrap. I paid 20 bucks. Well, probably about $23 if you count the hardware, the bolts. So it's built out of a piece of 1/2-inch plate that I scrounged up from somebody. Kind of an old rusty piece of plate that I cut out and then put in the mill and squared it all up. Ran a fly cutter over it, faced it all. The support arms were made from a 3/4 stainless. There's 4 of those. They were part of an underwater treadmill that I scrounged up from somewhere. The adapters that hold the dies, I bored the same diameter of hole in the top and bottom, set the stops up on the vise, milled everything using the same XY coordinates for every hole. Every one of these rods, you can see it better down here, you actually can't see it at all, but every one of these rods is about 80 thousandths longer, I don't remember exactly, than what you see here, and they're machined down a little bit smaller, about 100 thousandths all the way around, smaller than the outside diameter of 3/4, and they go into a small pocket that is milled into this bottom plate here, so that I allowed a couple thousandths clearance, so they kind of drop right in those pockets, and with the square cuts on the flanges on the shoulder there, everything lines up really nice. You can put these bottom bolts in here and snug them up, and the top will drop right on. So everything, I'm really pleased with how everything lined up. These upper adapters were made from an old blower shaft that had a spun bearing, ruined the blower shaft. So I made the lock rings and the bushings to go in there out of that, as well as the guide for the ram. I milled some flats on the side of the ram guide there, you can just see, so that the pivot arms will go, or the pivot arm supports will stay flat against that ram guide, and when everything's tightened down, that ram guide cannot, no way, no how, rotate. And I also made the pin here for the lower ram arms, pivot arms. It's in a tapered, the hole on the side of the ram is about 1/1000th bigger than the hole on the opposite side of the ram, so the pins go in tight, and they can't come back out because the ram keeps them from coming back out the other way. The rotation stops, I just built out of some little chunks of stuff I had laying around, TIG welded them together, and they come in. Let's see if we get a picture of that. Where are they at? The handle's kind of in the way to see that. Anyway, they come up and bump into the pivot arms, so it keeps the handle from flopping all the way back over and the ram from pulling all the way through the bushings. It's brass bushings that I pressed in, that I turned on the lathe into the main bushing, and then the lock ring I drilled for a spanner wrench, so you put that in there and snug it down with a spanner wrench. The top one you can see I got them out with some pliers, but anyway. Pretty proud with how everything turned out. I've still got to finish this pin up down here. It'll slide in and out, so I'm gonna groove it and put some C-clips on it so it stays in place. It hasn't fallen out, it stays put. Where it's at, I just have to make a mental note to check it occasionally, make sure it's not working its way out. The shell holder and the seating and sizing dies I bought from RCBS. The ram itself is an old hydraulic ram that I got from a company here in town that rebuilds hydraulic rams, that she was going to give to me for free, the gal working at the counter, and I said no, I want to pay for it, and so she told me okay, $20, so I paid $20 for that. And then the only other thing I bought is the C-clips and the bolts that hold everything together. The priming attachment goes in place of the shell holder. Shell holder unthreads, the priming attachment goes in. It's got the little sliding cup, little push out of the way, but keeps the primer in place as it goes up through the shell holder. And then the shell holder will thread into this adapter, which is the same thread as the RCBS dies, which will screw in up here. And that's the actual lock ring off from this seating die. And I built the other lock ring, kind of a little bit of a failed attempt at knurling. It didn't come out as good as I would have liked it to. Kind of struggle with that. The set screw for it, I could not find any brass set screws at the local hardware store, so I bought a brass slotted screw, cut a 60-degree point on the end of it, tried my best to line it up so it drives right exactly into a thread. Don't know if it does or not, doesn't really matter, it holds everything in place. Now these are the cases and the bullets. So here's a primed case that I primed on this press. Primers are set just about right. They're just barely below flush. They say about 4/1000ths on a regular rifle case. I don't know what it's recommended for a Barrett, but they fire, and they're probably about that 4 or 5/1000ths down. This is the bullet I'm shooting. It's a 416 diameter, 416 grain, Lehigh Defense, solid brass projectile. It's got some little, kind of hard to see, but a little bit of profile to the back end of it that's supposed to help with wind drag. These guys are rocket scientists. I'm not. I don't understand how it helps with the drag, but it's got a pretty high ballistic coefficient, and so far has proven to be pretty accurate. I loaded up a bunch at 187 grains. According to Lehigh, 188 grains is a max load, and I shot one or two just to make sure I didn't have any signs of pressure. If you can't really see the powder down in there, but it's pretty high. So we'll put this into the shell holder, press it in, set the bullet in there, get in there as straight as we can. And what I usually do is I'll run it up in right there. The bullet just hit the seating die, So I'll go about halfway. Back it up. Rotate the bullet a half a turn, just to help with making sure it's concentric, and then run it up in the rest of the way. Pull it out, and there we have it. So anyway, pretty proud how well this turned out. And looking forward to shooting these for $2.50 a shot instead of $8 that it costs for the factory ammo. So anyway, that's my press. Hope y'all like it.